Awesome. There you go. Okay. Hi guys. Um, so this is my wonderful friend Kelvin Heard, who we met in Hawaii. Hey, Kelv.
We
On
did. We
we
did.
did. And Kelv and I catch up. I'm very, very blessed to call Kelv my personal friend and my mentor. He's like a spiritual, not like you are a spiritual mentor to me, Kelv. And Kelv lives in the UK, and we have these incredible conversations. So we said, let's record it, hey,
We
and
did.
let's
We
put
always
it
have
out
these
there.
incredible conversations at about 5 or 6 a.m. UK time,
Yeah.
which are
I know.
which means I have to get out of bed, have my cold shower as normal, and then
I I'm absolutely impressed. You do this all the time. And we go to 7 a.m. exactly. And
we
then
do.
you have to look after your daughter or take her to
That's
school
right.
or
Go to
something. So we
school.
kind of wrap it up. Calv is actually brilliant at having it being a timekeeper. I can most certainly learn from him. Um, but we decided that we were going to record this because we have the most incredible conversations where they feel very grounded. Like I say, Kelv, you are an absolute spiritual mentor to me. And when I was going into Castle Hill Rocks a few weeks ago, it was the funniest thing because it was the first time ever that I really felt like I needed protection. And Kelv has written a book called A Rite of Passage, I think it
Yeah,
is.
right. A passage. Yeah.
Passage, and has had the most incredible, extraordinary, um, I want to say like span of a life, because that was a span of your life, in your
Yeah.
healing industry and world. And I remember reading about protection in a part of your book, and I was like, oh my God, I just feel like I just need some protection. And I reached out to you, and you sent me the most beautiful message. And Cal was so on point with, you didn't even know this until I think I sent you the message back saying connect with the group, because we had a wonderful group of 23 of us. And these rocks are profound, guys. They are a sacred site here in New Zealand. And you spoke about Orion and you spoke about the pyramids.
Yeah.
And they are all linked, which is, I think when I sent you the message saying, yep, this, you're spot on. You're like, oh, really? I'm like, yep, you're spot on. The fact that you've been doing this work for 30 or what, 40 odd years, and you still have a moment of, oh, really? I'm like, oh my God, you're just so one of my people. But you know what? Let's talk about spirituality, Kelv. Let's talk
So,
about
well, it's a really good
the
place to start. But I mean, Michelle's right. I met Michelle, must be nearly 5 years ago now. This coming November, we
2019.
met in Hawaii,
Yeah, that's right.
um, on an amazing course. And yeah, we just clicked. And I love Michelle because Michelle will always do things that you're told not to. And that is just fantastic as far as I'm concerned. We went
So,
to one
Kel, would you
event.
like to share the
Yeah, I will.
experience?
Yeah, I will. I will. We went to one event. It was a very sacred event on a mountain. So Michelle was told, no, do not dance until one you're told to, or whatever. So I'm sitting there, standing there, and all of a sudden I open my eyes and I think, oh my God, there she goes. She's dancing. Been told not to dance. Yeah, she's dancing. Meanwhile, I don't know what was happening to me. I was watching a UFO above my head and a massive snake going around on the floor. But anyway, I don't think we took anything, but who
Exactly.
knows? But it was an amazing experience, nevertheless.
And we laugh about this so many years later because, and I was actually sharing this with people the other day, saying how, we were in those two lines, the formation, we were
Hmm.
told, like, it kind of felt quite robotic.
Yeah,
And and we still pissed ourselves laughing because you
yeah,
said to me, you were like, you were just doing your thing. And I was like, I
yeah.
can't help it, man. I just like need to just groove and get into the flow. And then when you said you were like checking out UFOs, I was like, what? What? It was just a calamity of everything,
Yeah,
hey?
it was really. But
Wow.
it was a very profound, set of events, and it's one that I will never forget, and I'm immensely grateful for. And I think when you say about spirituality, the most wonderful thing that it's like giving thanks for, you know, just today, really, in every form, in every shape. that it comes. It doesn't matter what happens. Guess what? There's going to be a lot of great days, but there might be a few bad ones, and we have to just roll with it. And it doesn't matter. That's a thing. It truly doesn't matter, you
No, it
know?
does.
And we've had so many conversations about this, haven't we, over
We
the
have.
years?
At the same time, I want to acknowledge you, Kelv, because you can get Kelvin's book, guys. Is it on Amazon and Kindle, Kelv? Where did you?
I think it's just, yeah, Amazon or Kindle. I mean, I
Kindle.
don't even know. It's awful, isn't
You,
it?
you sound like me when I go onto podcasts. They're like, where can
I
they
know
find your
it's not in a solid hard copy, if that's
Yeah.
helpful.
But
But I'm sure I can arrange that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
will
yeah.
arrange that.
But you know what? It's just such an enlightening book for me. And every time I travel, I end up reading a part of Calvin's book. And Calv, to me, you have worked with so many people who are very enlightened, from the monks that you've met, and you were working with them and meditating with them in Scotland. I
Yeah,
can't remember their names, unfortunately. But going to work in Ground Zero, going to work with, I mean, the one story that stands out for me is how you had met that healer in Megan in Australia.
yeah.
And
Meg, bless her heart,
Meg,
lived in
yes,
Bunbury. Yeah,
yes,
on the west coast.
that's right. And
Yeah, that's right. About 100 k's south of Perth. Yeah,
that's right. And she had shared with you that she was waiting for you to come, and you're like, oh, okay. And then she had shared with you about Princess Diana,
yeah,
and I mean, this is your story to share, but it's just mind blowing how you have had such incredible wisdom for such a long time, but at the same time, you haven't come from that background like
no.
myself. It's something that so do you want to share a little bit so people can just hear about your spiritual journey, your
I think,
in life?
well, I always remember as a kid, I remember sitting in the back of my mum and dad's car, and, you know, we lived in like rural Essex, so about 40, 50 miles north of London. This is in the 70s, came from a pretty, I'd say, pretty poor background, to be honest.
Hmm.
And I remember when we used to go out at night times in the car, I used to think, well, that's strange. What are all these lights doing in the sky moving about? And I used to think, well, maybe they are planes, but some of them I'm sure aren't. And it was in those years, certainly between probably, I'd say, I don't know, 7 to 11, something like that, where I've started having, more experiences, um, seeing massive lights in the sky, they used to follow me and stuff like this. And in those days, when I was growing up, you could go out on your own. It was at night time and walk the dog or whatever, and no one was worried about it. And I remember once seeing this huge light that started coming towards me, and it kept coming and coming, and it really scared the shit out of me, to be honest. I was like, oh, what the hell is this? And I ran, I was just petrified. And I had numerous of those events that happened when I was a kid. But
Wow.
then when I was 11, I started having these dreams about my future and what was going to happen. Some of them were quite like at school, where I would have like sort of these dreams of maybe who I was going to go out with or who I might have a bit of a punch up with, or you know what I mean, anything like that. And I thought, well, this is a bit weird. I didn't really share it with anybody because I just thought, well, this is really weird. Saying that, I had a really good mate called John Wright, still have. We grew up together, and my dad used to be caretaker of our local primary school. And John and I, after school, would go and like set the ping pong ball up, and play ping pong. What do you call it? Not ping pong. What do you call it?
Table tennis.
That's it. That's it. Table tennis.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
To me,
And
it's ping pong as well. Yeah.
yeah, and I was in ping pong, table tennis, and literally, I'll never forget it. The doors used to start rattling, and it was insane. Now it turned out that John became a healer quicker than me.
Wow.
And so I think our energies there will really have an impact on something.
Yeah.
You know, my dad used to hear things at the school. He used to hear the old bell ringing because the school was built in about 1880. There was an old bell, and he used to, you know, hear people calling him Morris, Morris, you know, all this type of stuff. So it was there that things started to wake up. And then basically I went into the city, started doing license conveyancing in Chancery Lane. For those of you who don't know London well, it's just off like Fleet Street and, you know, all around there and the Inns of Court. And there was a lot going on at that time. I certainly started realizing at that time that actually life had been pretty traumatic for me. Because growing up, my dad had an extramarital relationship. That my mum was very depressed. I grew up with a lot with my mum, although my dad stayed in the marital home. And I started drinking a hell of a lot and smoking a hell of a lot. And I remember one day I was just coming up the escalator, and I remember thinking, this is really, really weird. I must have been about 21, 22. So it's coming up the escalator at Chancery Lane Tube Station. I remember thinking, strange, I'm getting ill. And I couldn't really understand where that came from. And I remember coming out to a very busy street into Holborn. And I remember thinking, God, it's really weird to feel alone in this world. And I remember thinking, what the hell's that about? That's bloody strange. But when you look back on it, of course, many of us who are on this spiritual journey. We do feel at times very alone.
Oh,
And when,
massive.
yeah, you know, and when you're beginning to come awake, and that's what was happening to me, um, these different things start happening. Anyway, to cut a long story short, on the 7th of March, 1991, at 10 past 2 in the afternoon, or 7 minutes past 2 in the afternoon, I was walking back up Chancery Lane. As normal, I've been out to lunch, and it's probably a long lunch, and I near enough collapsed, and I had to get back to the office. Got back to the office. One of the partners there was there, and he said, "Kelv, you know, you need to go home." And I went home, and basically, I think maybe I went back to the office once, and I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome (ME), which, those who don't know, is an umbrella term for a set of symptoms which are basically fatigue, muscle weakness, neurological disorders. So ME is very much as I said, an umbrella term for a group of symptoms, but basically it's all fatigue related. Fibromyalgia can be involved in that as well. And I was off work for 5 years, but by the August of 1991, I could no longer walk, barely feed myself. So I was with my parents, and they were looking after me. And it was like something had exploded in my brain. It was the most dreadful feeling. Even now, talking about it makes me sweat, you know, because it was just like, wow, that's full on. And I remember that morning very, very well. Well, actually, it wasn't a morning, it was in the middle of the night when it happened.
So I'm going
And
to stop you there. Sorry
yeah,
to interrupt you. To bring understanding for people who've been through traumatic
mm,
experiences, or going through traumatic experiences, um, just like you're talking about now and bringing up the story, yet your body's remembering.
yeah, very much so.
Like it's always fascinating for me because people always go, well, how many more layers? How long is this going to be until until it's done? Well, it's just a part of who you are. It's a part of your
Yeah,
story.
it's done when it's done.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
as simple as that, there are no answers.
yeah,
And I don't want to go off track, but all the people I've dealt with over the years, there, as you rightly say, Michelle, there are layers and there are layers and there are layers.
mm,
You hope you will get the tools from the work that we do for people, the people, the lovely people we work with, and I think they're all amazing people. They've all got their most incredible journeys, all of
yeah,
them as individuals, extraordinary people.
sure, yeah,
They go forward on their journeys and they'll come to a time where they think, well, okay, I am feeling this, I'm remembering this, but you know what? With what Michelle and Kelv have taught, we actually can deal with this now
yes,
in that traumatic, you know, with that trauma.
yes,
But how long that takes, that's a different question.
yeah.
but it's about the learning. It's about the journey.
So to
Um,
go back to you, that was part of your,
yeah, that was part of my wake up, and it was only so that was in 1991. In 1990, I think it was 94. I might be wrong. It might be 95. It was either 3 or 4 years into me being ill. I was introduced to an amazing lady called Valerie Felgate. She's still alive. She lives in Lincolnshire in the UK. She must be in her late 80s or early 90s. And she was, in quotes, a healer. And she came to the house, and I remember thinking, well, what the hell are you going to do? You know, because I'd been in this situation for such a long time, still had a pretty legal brain, really. I suppose I still do today. And she came in, she put her hands on me, and she said, you know what your problem is, don't you? And I said, well, what's that? In a very weak answer. She went, it's
mm,
your father. And I knew she was right. I mean,
mm,
I knew she was right. I knew it's my father. I was so, so angry
yeah,
towards my father
yeah,
for what he'd done to my mum and me, and he'd, you know, left us. He'd rejected us, and I think for many of us, rejection and loss of a parent in whatever form that may be is a really very difficult thing. And for all those whose parents are around, foster parents or you
yeah,
know, people who look after them, it plays out in the same way. Obviously, you know, you know, any person who is a parent figure, when someone is rejected, you know, they no longer have that connection. It, it's painful, it's hurtful, and I'm
yeah.
sure when this goes out, many people will be able to really, you know, connect with that. Of course, they will. You know, we've all got our stories to do with our parents, haven't we?
Absolutely. And you know, this brings me to something I was thinking about today because I thought you and I would talk about this is, well, I didn't think we are going to talk about this, but I was still thinking, oh, I've got to mention how it's interesting how when a kid, like I look at my son, 13, when he's super defensive, it's not about the specific thing. It's not about me taking away his phone or it's, you know, by the time he's unraveled,
Hmm.
there's been a whole lot of other stuff that hasn't even come to the surface yet, you know. And the thing is, we pinpointed as parents that it's got to be that specific thing, but it's not. There's so much more that underlies and needs to come up to the surface. And you're 100% right in the sense of when we've got those rejection and abandonment wounds, man, those are, if you think about it, those are two massive low vibrational emotions that just keep us in this contracted space, you know, because we're then
Absolutely.
so shit scared
Yeah.
to put ourselves out there into the world. And I honor you because you sound like you went on a great tangent, you know, for a long time. But then that, you know, the drinking, the smoking, the working hard, the just doing what the norm is
Yeah,
about.
absolutely.
Because you
And it
don't know
was.
different until you know different, you know?
No, exactly. And
Yeah,
you know, it's interesting what you say about our kids. I've got a daughter who's nearly 18, Saba. And I'm going to use a word which is it's not my word, it's someone else's word, so I haven't thought about it. Our kids today are in what I would call an infodemic. So they are completely overwhelmed by information.
yep,
They are
yep,
completely overwhelmed externally, and that contributes to internally.
yes,
So they are dealing with traumatic events and normal growing up events inside themselves
yeah,
where that could be in, enough for most people.
yeah, yeah,
Yet they then have to deal externally with a massive infodemic of what is coming towards them.
yeah.
And they haven't at that age got those filters to really work out what the hell's going on. And interesting enough, when I was just talking there, the word trapped went through my head. You know,
Mm,
humanity is trapped. I'm not saying all of us.
yeah,
Many people are very wise, bless their hearts. They might not watch any television, any news, and they may have the filters to be able to deal with what they watch. But that's normally when they're slightly older or much older.
Yeah.
For our kids, um, it's a very tricky time for them at the moment.
It's
You know,
massive, Kelvin. You've worked in the mental health field for a very long time,
yeah,
haven't you? So you've seen things that I'm sure are like mind and body altering, and where some people are just, yeah, I mean, without going into too much detail, but we've both explored with working with people who are very traumatized, and sometimes it's just like trying to find the balance as best we can as human
yeah,
beings, and respectfully as a parent, for those of you who are in these realms of being spiritual, respectfully, it takes fucking hard work to say no.
it's
You
really hard.
No, no, like I was
Yeah,
chatting to Cade early on, my son, and he's got such great manners. And I actually said to him, I said, I love your manners, but I'm going to make this about me. I
yeah,
said, because I'm so grateful that mom has gone, no. What do you say?
yeah,
What do you say? What do you
yeah,
say? And yes, some people might not like hearing that,
yeah,
because it takes hard work to say no, and it
yeah,
takes hard work to teach them
absolutely.
simple, basic manners. And I
Yeah,
say that respectfully, but not respectfully, because I
yeah,
think some people don't like hearing the truth, because it's easy to be a wishy-washy parent.
yeah. The truth is a very hard, is a very hard thing to say.
I know, but this is what you and I've been speaking about,
We
hey,
have.
for in all these weeks. It's like, okay, what, why is it not okay to speak our truth? Why is it? Because in these kinds of realms, in terms of being, in my understanding, and
Mm,
please correct me if I'm wrong, but in terms of being a healer, in terms of being somebody who works with a different consciousness or
yeah,
channels, there's this expectation or this uncertainty of the fact that we're meant to be a certain way. Don't eat
mm,
this, don't eat that, da, 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 da. And I went down that world, so I
yeah.
can't judge. We
No,
felt like it was so left field, and I was like,
yeah.
damn, where's the
I,
balance?
I, I think I think it's very interesting because just carrying on from when I met Valerie. Valerie opened a massive door for me that I could actually get well. I'd always known in my head I could get well,
Did
but it was
you?
but it was finding the right frequency, the right door, whatever we call it. But it was certainly about frequency. It was about connecting with the frequency, a very high vibration, which my body could attune to balance and get its health back. And that's exactly what I did. And I got that back within about 18 months, I reckon. I was back on a tennis court doing all the things that I once loved. But I knew I couldn't go back to doing law. And that's when the big door opened. I met another lady called Jenny McCulloch, who was a medium, amazing lady. I mean, all these ladies are still around, but they're in their 80s and 90s and have done the most incredible work all their lives.
Mm.
And they basically just said you should be a healer. And I remember thinking, well, how the bloody hell am I going to do that? How am I
Yeah,
going to
from
make
going from
money?
left brain to like
Yeah,
right brain, it's like, wow.
and also, this is back in 1997.
Yo.
It was I was thinking, how's this going to work? But the big door that opened for me was an amazing guy called Dudley Poplack. Sadly, he's no longer with us. I met him through another friend who sadly is no longer with us. And he
So
Dudley,
glad you are, Kel. I'm
yeah,
so
yeah.
glad you're still here.
Dudley was brilliant. It was South African. There you go.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I've met a lot of South African people in my life. I've opened a lot of doors, and I'm very grateful. And Dudley just took me under his wing, really. And he was a very wealthy guy. He was one time head of the Psychic Studies College in London, but he only did that for a year. But his primary job was that he was an interior designer, but he wasn't just a interior designer. He worked for the royal family, did Highgrove, did 10 Downing Street, did the American Embassy, you know, but he didn't really speak about it.
Wow.
So he opened a massive door to me, to different people in South Africa as well. But the most important thing he did for me was that he opened a door into me going to the Hale Clinic in London, in Regent's Park. And at that time, the Hale Clinic was really well known in the UK. It was the biggest complementary centre in Europe. It was on 3 or 4 floors in Regent's Park. It's huge. Owned by the then late amazing lady called Teresa Hale. And I mean, it had everything, you know, from colonics galore, because everyone was doing colonics, but I was having nothing shoved up my arse at that time. Let me tell
Getting
you.
rid of the shit.
Yeah, exactly. It really is it. And you know, I was on the top. I managed to get in. I was in the top floor of this building, and that's where it all started.
Wow.
And in those days, it was really good because I said the Hale Clinic was in the press all the time because there were so many well-known people going there, including Prince Steiner. So it got loads of publicity, and yeah, that's where it all took off. So was in the press a lot. It seems weird talking about it now, nearly 30 years later, you know. But yeah, so I'm very, very grateful to Dudley, and to another uh, great mentor of mine at the time, Tom Lucas. He was also there. He was a healer. Yeah, I mean, there was 5 or 6 healers. You know, it seems crazy talking about it now that there we were in the centre of London, and you know, yeah, really weird. Well, I
But
think
did
about
you ever, well, did you ever, because the way I've come to know you is that you're just a fun, awesome person to be around who
I
takes
love
the
having
piss
fun.
out of life. Yes.
I love having fun.
And when you started your healing journey, were you always this person, or were you
Yeah,
more sort of,
no, I
were you?
was. Yeah,
Okay.
no, I was. I was always fun as a kid. It's funny actually. I was just thinking about all the people I met around that time. There was a big group of people I met at that time in the 90s, and um, most of them I've kept in contact with or know them really, really well still.
Amazing.
And you know, they've all gone. They're all in their 50s now. They were all in their early 20s. All having a lot of fun. Probably a lot of them were having too much fun, but that was their journey, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, yeah. I was just about to touch my nose. I was like, don't touch your nose,
yeah,
Michelle.
no,
Don't
don't
touch
touch
your
your
nose.
nose. And there's some very, very funny stories with all of them. And now they're all
Wow.
married and got kids, and it's a very, very, very different, you know. Thank God. I was thinking, thank Christ we didn't meet in the and we could have done because you lived in London, didn't you?
I did, and that was just before I had a little girl, Gabs. I lived
Yeah,
in Wimbledon, where every South African goes, the southwest of London, and I love London. It was one
yeah,
of my most I just loved it. I loved the vibe. I loved being in London,
yeah.
and I love the British. It was something that blew my mind when I first started working in the UK. And interesting enough, like this is how I was guided spiritually, was without even knowing anything about self-harming. I was put to be a temp, like a secretary temp, at an outpatient hospital. And I can't think of where it actually
Wasn't St
was.
John Elizabeth's, was it, or any, or was it up in North London?
You're just it's something with the S. I feel like the place is something with like the tubes, the train station I used to get off was like something with the S, and I can picture the ladies that I worked with, but it definitely was St. John's, but I'm not too sure where. But man alive, it blew my mind as to how people self-harmed. They
Yeah,
used to come into the back of the office, and the woman just said, prepped me, and she said, Michelle, just be aware that they're normal people. They're just
yeah,
working through a lot. And sometimes you could see my body would be quite reactive because I didn't even
yeah.
realize
What
time
year? What
existed.
year was that, Michelle?
It was 2001 and 2001 and
Okay.
2002. Yeah, yeah. So absolutely. And I think that that's the beauty of, I'm so grateful to that experience, because when I look back, you go, and when you look back at your journey, Kelv, that's the amazing thing. Like even knowing you for 5 years, um, I look at how far and how much our journeys have changed together. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
you've
massively.
such an
Yeah, massively.
important part of my life. And you know, just to share with people, like energy is energy, guys, and it's everything that we tapped into. We're all healers, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
we are. I
And
agree.
yeah, and Cal was kind enough to spend time and work with my husband Brent, and you would go into this meditation or this meditative space, and Brent would come out and go, I'll go, oh, and like typical wife, like how'd it go, you know,
Yeah,
and you'd say, I don't, what did Calvin do? And I'd say, but you look so much younger. That's what blew my mind is, you know, you were teaching him to just be. And whatever you were seeing or whatever you're working with is, you know, I know the connections that we've had with certain beings, and it's been spectacular.
yeah.
Um, some of your stories are just like, whoa, like really just incredible. So I honor you because you know, even though you're remembering, but you think it's a lifetime away, you have such a spectacular amount of wisdom that you've gifted to many people, Cal.
Well, that's incredibly kind of you. But
Yeah,
and I
absolutely.
do take that on board. Honestly, I really, really do. I'm not always great at accepting all these things. Maybe that's a flaw in me. But there's one thing we're talking about self-harm, and I remember Meg. So this is again back in 1997. Would have been the May 1997. I remember she had this little crystal shop in Bunbury, and I was in there, and she was telling me different things, and I'll never forget this as long as I live. And it didn't make any sense at the time. And she took my hand and she said, "You are going to see so many of God." These was her words, not mine. Of God's children who will be self-harming, cutting themselves, killing, and I remember thinking, "What are you talking about?" But she knew. I mean, at that stage, Meg was so on point. It, it was quite unbelievable, actually.
Well, I'm
Quite
gonna,
unbelievable.
yes, and it is mind blowing because she phoned you the night of Princess Diana's accident, didn't she? Or the early
She,
hours.
yeah, I mean, in that first time I met Meg, she told me these things, and then she said, "Oh, I'd like to see you in a week's time." And so, again, this is the May of 1997. And we were sitting there having a coffee, and she looked at me and she took my hand and she said, "You know someone, don't you, who knows Prince Diana very well?" And I remember looking at her thinking, "Hang on a minute, where are you getting this from?" Because to me, this was like she must have known. She must have somehow she'd found out, you know, through my man Martin, but who was close to her in Australia. But Martin actually didn't know,
Wow.
and so I was very apprehensive. I said, "Well, yeah, there is someone I know," and she said, "Well, this is the message you've got to give to her." And her message was Meg's message was very, very simple. And funny enough, I've written it down in a book. I've got it next to me here. And it said on the last weekend of August 1997, and these are Meg's words, not mine, Prince Diana will be assassinated. Though those were her words, they're not my words.
Mhm.
I will make that very clear. And so I said, "Well, thank you very much." We carried on our conversation, which seems a bit strange, but we did,
Mhm.
considering how high profile she was at that time. Anyway, I went back to the UK. I met Dudley. We had lunch, and I said, "Dudley, I don't know how to tell you this, but uh, this is what Meg told me." And he was like, "Well, I can't tell her that." And he was seeing her 2 or 3 times a week
Yeah.
because he's godfather of Prince William as well. And he was a good
Mhm.
friend of her father's, Johnny Spencer.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, well, okay, don't tell her. And then literally, it must have been about a week before the event happened, I got a phone call one night. I was staying at my parents' house, and the phone rang. It was like 2 in the morning or so. I remember thinking, what the bloody hell's going on? Went downstairs, it's Meg. And she's going, you've got to get her to wear like something over her chest. Well, that's where she did actually have the worst of her injuries. So
Mm.
anyway, I did speak to Dudley, and Dudley said, all right, okay, look, I'll tell her. She's going to take it on board, because at that stage she was with Dodie Fayed and, very much in love. Good luck to her. And yeah. And then, as you rightly say, the last weekend of August,
Mm.
I had a television in my room, switched it on, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Mm. How did you feel, Cal, like when you saw that? I mean, I know how we as outside of that realm,
Hmm.
but you had a close connection to Dudley, who had a close
It
connection
was
to
very odd. Dudley was in London. He lived in Cheney Gardens down in Chelsea,
yeah.
and I rang him up. I said, Dudley, you got to put the television on. And I heard him click the television on, and I heard him just fall to his knees,
I can
sobbing
imagine.
his heart out. I've never
Yeah.
seen him cry before or heard him
Wow.
cry. And he went, I just can't believe it. He said, I
Yeah.
seriously just can't believe this. And I said, well, nor can I. So
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. I don't know. I really don't.
So do you ever channel or bring Princess Diana's energy through, or Dudley's energy?
No, I've met many people who have channeled
Mm-hmm.
her.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, it's um, for me, it's something that happened in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I see Dudley occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
Fun enough, it's his birthday in 5 days' time. It was on the 15th of April.
Oh.
Um, but yeah, it was a very, very, but and don't get me wrong, when it happened, it totally immersed me,
Mm.
because I met someone who called Hazel Courtney. This was in 1998. Hazel used to write for the Daily Mail and the Sunday Times. She said she'd had this experience where she'd been taken over by Diana. She wrote a book called Divine Intervention, which is all about Diana's life. And there's a chapter in there on me and how myself and Hazel met, and her, how, as she said, she was taken over by Diana, Hamden Harrods of all places. I mean, looking back at it now, it all seems very weird, very bizarre, and where I am today, all those years later, yeah, it seems very odd. But I think there is a point to make here. At that stage, it was my truth.
Mm-hmm.
I can't deny that, and that's what happened. Those are the events.
Mm-hmm.
Whether people believe them or not is neither here nor there for me,
Sure.
because that's my truth, and that's what happened.
Yes.
I'm not here to prove that either way, to be honest. It doesn't really matter.
Yes.
All of us, every single person, you, certainly yourself, I've seen you live your truth time and time and time again.
So
And I honor
lovely.
that. You always honor me, but I really honor you.
Thank you,
But I
Cal.
honor you on many ways. I honor you, the truth of your journey, and you as a woman, in the feminine of your line, your ancestry, and as a healer, and that's very, very powerful.
Thank you.
But I love the way that you every step in truth, because that's where we've all got to be. And I think those experiences that I had 30 years ago bring us very much into where we're having this conversation today. Yes, I have had that massive journey since. I've traveled a lot, done a lot of healing work, I've met the most extraordinary people. But the most extraordinary people I've met are the people who have no money, who are desperately trying to get through life. They are the most extraordinary people.
Yeah.
They have the most incredible journeys. They are making the most incredible sacrifice. and have been abused or whatever it might be, and they have to live with that, those memories, that trauma, yet they have the strength and the courage to seek out the people who will help them, whether it's yourself, Michelle, or myself, other people. They deal with their own traumas, and
Yeah.
they are the most amazing people.
Yeah.
So everyone actually is amazing.
Yeah.
Often we put it on, especially in today's society, about wealth. People I've met with incredible wealth still have the same immense problems that anybody does if they don't have, and people will go, oh, well, yeah, of course, because they've got money, they can deal with it. It's not like that.
No.
It is not like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone I meet has challenges,
Yeah.
especially in a world today where we are in a world, and I know I'm skipping a huge amount of time, I'm skipping 30 years to get to this point, but I do want to make this point that I feel we are in a very, very different world right now, and we have been for some time. The shift has happened.
Mm-hmm.
It's already happened.
Mm-hmm.
We're living the shift.
Bloody
We are
living.
living the shift. And I think if that's a strap line that people maybe would take away from this, it's we are all living the shift.
Yeah.
And everybody will live the shift in their own truth and their own way.
Yeah.
Get out of your own way, people. Don't be judgmental.
Yeah.
Everybody is trying to do their very, very, very best
Yes.
in very difficult circumstances.
And social media is a part of that difficult circumstance.
Social media is a part of that difficulty. So will things like AI and other such things. Yet there is a side of all of that where there is a good side to it.
Yeah.
And we have to learn how to do it. I have to be a bit careful because I know quite a lot about all this stuff now because I wear a different hat as well now as a director of a startup charity. I can't say too much about it, but it's to do with kids' mental health and other such stuff. The only reason I can't say too much about it, just we're working with a large organisation at the moment, and we're in talks, and we're all just trying to make something happen, and hopefully
Sure.
we will.
Sure.
But it will be very much app-based, AI-based, and there are a lot of good things that can come from all these different, ways of being. One of the reasons, and that social media is, I think, failed, and it has failed dramatically our children and us as adults, is that it just was not. It wasn't legalized. Sorry, not legalized. It just wasn't, for a better word, policed. It just wasn't. There were no rules. There were no regulations. The same as on the web basis, exactly the same.
I know.
And we can go down huge routes about that. Some will be
Sure.
right, some will be wrong. But I think what it comes back to, and all of this comes back to, and Michelle, we've had so many conversations over the last 5 years. They're very real. We've shared our emotions with each other. We've shared our difficulties. We've shared the most desperate times, and yet also the most bloody amazing fun times. But to be in truth and not to be frightened of being in truth is the key.
Yes.
It
So true.
really, really is. If you can put that key in that lock of truth, and I've always said this, we are our greatest teacher and our greatest guru. And that I mean that in the singular.
Yep.
We have so much wisdom and knowledge in us.
Yeah.
And I can hear people as they're watching this saying, yeah, we know that. That's great that you do. But more importantly, I hope you live it.
Mm.
Because there's many people I hear who say all these things and yet do not put it into their everyday life.
Yeah.
And that is bloody important. Because if you do not bring it into this energy field, you cannot create any future for yourself. You will end up going round and round and round in circles. I'm in
Yeah.
trauma. I'm in this. I'm in that. This doesn't work. I've done
Yes.
that course. I've done the other course. I ate that way. I didn't drink. Nothing changed. Well, yeah, you're right. It didn't
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
weren't prepared to step forward.
Yeah. It's like playing that. Remember the kiddies game where you had a stick and you
Yeah,
go round and
absolutely.
round,
Yeah, yeah,
and you
yeah,
come back and you're so freaking drunk and you're like,
yeah,
oh my
yeah,
God,
yeah,
and you do it again and you do it
yeah.
again, even though
Again, you do it
you're going to
again.
catch it any moment,
Yeah.
it's exactly, yeah.
Get out of fear, everybody. Fear, false events appearing real.
Yeah.
That's what it means. The moment you step away from that, get on your true path, you're in that immense amount of energy, that incredible frequency that elevates you somewhere else above all the shit that's going on.
Mhm.
You don't need to hear it, you don't need to be it, you don't need to talk about it. You don't need to talk about your next door neighbour. You don't need to slag anybody else off. You don't need to say someone's thin, someone's fat, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter.
It's the drama that people get addicted to, and
Yes,
I
get
see
out of
that.
the drama. It doesn't matter what Lucy's doing down at number 56, house number. It doesn't matter. What's really important is how we go together in a group consciousness towards we've entered the truth, let's elevate the truth. You
I
know,
love your,
all I've heard through my whole entire spiritual life
yeah.
is this is going to happen, that's going to happen, there's going to be this drama, there's be no money, there'll be no food, there'll be war. Has anybody ever realized what the hell that would mean for the human race? Imagine stepping out of your door. There's no food, there's no money, there's war. It will be hell on earth. That is not what people want.
No.
Get away from all that drama, that rubbish. You're just
Yeah.
extending the drama.
Do you know, Kel, some of the most happiest people are the people that live in third world countries
Mm,
that want for very little.
absolutely.
And I love your passion behind it, and I love your enthusiasm, because that is truth.
Yeah,
You speaking your truth is exactly that, in that moment of where it's like, yes. And
yeah,
I don't know if I'm looking so white on the screen, but I think it's because the lighting's changing. But it's like, yes, man, yes, yes. Because think of it like going to a church. It's, every going to a church, even though a lot of us, myself included, I grew up in a church, but it's not that I have anything against the church. I have
no,
against what the church stands for. But be in the energy of when you're in a Pentecostal church and everybody's clapping and the band's going and everybody's singing and they're praising the Lord and you're hallelujahing. It's like the best feeling ever, you
yeah,
know? So
absolutely.
that's energy. I'm just going to switch on my light quickly, Cal.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you. But it's just, it's exactly that. It's being in the truth of
Yeah,
ourself, which I believe that we all are starting to know this. Because if
absolutely.
this global reset that's happened, how many people in the last 3 to 4 years have gone, I need to look within.
Yeah,
Like something's got to change
yeah,
in my life. And I think that's admirable and honorable, And I know
yeah.
you've got to go. We've got 1 minute to go.
Well, I haven't got a rush. I can get talking for another 5, 10 minutes. I could
Okay.
talk on all day, to be
Yeah. Yeah,
honest.
with you I could chat
But
as well.
but I just I'd love to end it in. I know I was very passionate then, but I also because I know it leads to happiness
Mm.
and fun, and
Hmm.
that's how I've always led my life. And if we can just live in truth, it's not a fearful place. It's a really cool place. you know.
And may I share, like, this is the funniness of Kelv, guys. Kelv has a father who's 90, what's he, 93, 94?
94, yeah.
94. And Cal was sharing a story with me about how and I'm laughing because it was a funny moment
Yeah,
when
yeah, 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 yeah.
falling down the stairs, okay, and he's just when you hear about this man, you're just like, oh my God, I want to be like that in a certain way, like he just, and I love the way that you make fun of how things happen because
Yeah.
life is not going to be so serious,
No, exactly.
and
I mean, you're totally right. I mean, at the end of the day, things are going to happen to us.
yes,
You can cross your fingers, you can, do whatever. It ain't going to stop it happening.
no,
And the quicker people realize that,
yeah,
the happier lives they will live.
yeah.
It's really simple.
Yeah, it is. Hey, and that's what I love is that when we look at simplicity, we don't need all the stuff that we
No,
have.
no,
I keep going through this cleansing process where I'm just like, what do I need this for? Who needs 200 crystals, for goodness
no,
sakes?
you
Like
don't. You
I'm
don't.
surrounded by crystals in
Yeah.
in the
It's
mountains.
great that it's great you love crystals. It's brilliant. But
Yeah,
as you say, do you need 200
I
when someone
don't
could
know. Maybe
benefit
some
from
people
one as a
do.
gift?
Absolutely. But that's the thing. It's about gifting what no longer feels good or resonates with you because that for me is
Yeah.
evolution. That is where you
Yeah,
go,
absolutely. And I think you've really hit on saying evolution is all part of people finding who they really are. And I truly believe, we talk about this path, we talk about the truth is happening in front of us, but that is the path. It's about people living their truth, whether they're at university, whether they're a lecturer, whether they're a company director, whether they're a healer, whether they're a doctor, a surgeon. We're all in the same place. Whatever cultural background you're from, whatever religious beliefs you have, whatever age you are, we are all part of the whole.
I love that.
And that's where I'll end it.
Yes, I was going to break out in a hallelujah. Praise the Lord. Because that felt like incredible. I was like, yep, great way to end it. The whole, Cal, the absolute whole. And we're going to have more of these conversations, I hope, because I think
We
they're
will,
just,
we will. And I'm very grateful, Michelle. Thanks very much for allowing me to have this space and for you to be truly the wonderful you, the wonderful person you are.
thank you, Cal.
It's
And
simple as that.
right back. I kind of have a feeling that people go, we need to know more about his journey. And I'm like, guys, buy his book, which I'll write because Calvin's book is nothing short of exceptional. And the journey you've walked and the hardships that you've had and the downfalls that you've had, but how you've bounced back. Like you're pure testament to how life continues.
You're right. Well, the journey is the journey.
Mhm.
And that's simply how you grow. And I'm sure we could do a whole conversation, you and I, about really being honest. And I'm sure there are people who know a hell of a lot about our journeys already, but we could do an amazing conversation about the ups and downs of our own journeys
Yeah, I
and
look
how
forward
we've
to it.
coped
Yeah,
with that and how, yeah, some of those
I look,
memories still come back, they still trigger, but they don't trigger as much.
that is that is something that I believe that that's how we evolve.
Yeah.
Part of the human experience is still getting pissed off, triggered,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
irritated,
yeah, 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 yeah.
because sometimes things are out of our control
They are.
completely.
They are.
And at the same time, it's saying, okay, I'm going to have my moment. I'm going to
Hmm.
say what I need to say, but then it's done.
Yeah.
It's done instead of holding on to it and holding on to it. But I'd
Yeah.
love that. I'd absolutely love that.
And just going one little step further with that, as I've said, and I have emphasized it many, many times, people have their own realities. Some people will think what we talk about, it's great. Other people will say, well, we don't really agree with that, really, Kelvin Michelle.
Yeah,
We don't see it like that. That's our truth. And that's absolutely cool and fine.
yeah,
As I said, this is about non-judgment.
yeah.
It's about accepting people as who they are and where they want to go and what their journeys are. And we're all heading in the same direction, maybe just different paths.
And that's the shift, Calv. I love that. And we're going to end off with that because we all know judgment well enough. We are coming back to what you've basically said a few times, and that is for me, it's the openness, the compassion, the love that we have for one another. Because I'm grateful to you. You make the effort getting up early in the morning, to spend this time with me. And I'm incredibly grateful. I mean, I'm always stuffing my face when Calvin eats, when Calvin Nutchat is drinking his tea or his coffee. But thank you, Cal. Thank you for being here. And hey, guys, we'll continue the conversation. This is just kind of how we roll.
Yeah, lovely.
I
Listen,
feel like,
everybody.
yeah, go for it,
No, I
Cal.
was just going to say, everybody have an amazing, amazing day, and just realize how amazing and great you are, especially in the very difficult times. That's a time to make sure that you really, really love yourselves and
I
go
love that.
for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Cal, for being here. Thanks,
No
guys.
worries.
We'll definitely be back by the sounds of things, and we're going to have the best conversations, deep, real, and recorded.
Yeah.
It's recorded somewhere out there in the field, Cal, but we'll record it here as well. So thanks for joining me, guys. Have a beautiful day. And us. Thanks, Cal. Bye.
Bye.
Cal, you've got to stop the recording. It's on your side. Please. Can you do it?
Um,
We may have to.
oh, hang on.